Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome NAB President and CEO, Gordon Smith.
Good morning. I hope you're all enjoying the 2013 NAB show and all that it has to offer. Your being here this morning is a huge step in that direction. We have a great program in store for you today. These days, we don't just access content in one place. If you're anything like me, you've got your mobile device in one hand and your tablet in the other, and you're sitting in front of your laptop with the TV on. The media environment is constantly evolving, as we are the ways that we consume content from all kinds of sources. As we look ahead in this multi-platform world, we must consider the roles of both broadband and broadcast and how they work together to bring consumers the content they want on the variety of platforms they demand. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a tremendous privilege. The privilege of hearing from a leader of one of the media industry's most influential companies. As chairman and CEO of Verizon Communications, Lowell McAdam is helping to shape the future of the broadband environment. He's here today to discuss his vision for the future of wireless broadband, broadcasting, and competition in our multi-platform world. He's at the helm of America's leading wireless provider. And our conversation today provides us an excellent opportunity to hear his views on the business, on technology, and on policy issues that affect us all. At Verizon, Lowell is responsible for operations of all business units and staff functions. He's also the chairman of the Verizon Wireless Board of Representatives. He's previously served as Verizon's president and COO until becoming CEO in 2011. Lowell is also past chairman of the board of directors of the CTIA, the Wireless Association, and is the director of the National Academy Foundation. We're pleased to have Lowell here today to discuss the transformations taking place with new technologies that are impacting the way we share information. So let's take a look at Verizon's many different platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lowell McAdam. Thank you, Lowell.
Good morning, everyone.
Lowell, thank you for being here. Let me say at the outset, to all who are attending, we appreciate his being here. Some might say it takes courage to come as a broadband guy to a broadcast convention. But the truth is that we can learn much from one another. There's really no secrets in telecommunications, and I've asked Lowell to just be very candid, and we will be very respectful because we truly respect you and your great company.
Oh, thanks, Gordon. And we have a lot of great partners in the audience and even better customers out there. So I'm happy to tell you what's going on in our business, and it's really an honor for me to be here, Gordon. So thank you.
Well, we thank you. The last 15 years have been an amazing ride for Verizon. You've given us Fios, fiber to the home, and I wonder if you would share with us what it's been like in all the great advances you've made as a company.
Yeah. Well, we often look back. We formed the company in '99 from, oh gosh, 4 big companies, but probably 17 smaller companies. And so anytime you do a merger like that, it's a very complicated process. But if I had to sum up the last 13 years in one word, it would be speed. Mm-hmm. If you look at how the networks performed back in '99, those of you that had a cell phone, you remember how it sort of tilted you to the side here as you carried it around, and it had, the 2 great functions of send and end. Those were the only things, and you really couldn't do data. And if you look at where we are today, we're doing 10, 15 megabits. Our new price plans are just data only. We give away voice and text, which were huge revenue drivers for us. Then if you look on the wireline side of the business, it was all twisted copper pair, and we've been aggressively taking that out every chance we get. We made a big bet on Fios, and Ivan took a beating over that, and he held his ground, and that now is the platform. It's really the class of broadband, I think, across the country. So all of that is taken us on the Fios side from maybe 56 kilobits to, we just announced Quantum, which is at 300, and we're testing 1 gig into the home now. So it boils down to speed and big investments and lots of transitions that go along with that.
Well, I often remind my broadcast TV members that we really need companies like Verizon to succeed as well. We're sort of in it together, and clearly many people get their television today with subscription services. Yeah. What do you see the future of subscription TV being? Is it as good as ever?
It's funny. I guess what sells blogs and papers is predicting the demise of things long before customers have even thought about it. So over my career, I look at all the premature deaths, and everybody's talking about cord cutting and cord shaving and that sort of thing. I'm a big fan of the more dimensions there are to a customer's choices, the better. But I think that subscription TV is going to be around for a long time. If you take a look in wireless, when we converted off of analog onto digital, we literally had to almost hunt down people to take away their phones and give them a digital phone. And I think subscriptions are going to be around 10, 15, maybe even 20 years from now. Yeah. But I hope we're smart enough as a collective ecosystem to add the dimensions that customers want as they want them. We've had to cannibalize ourselves within Verizon a lot, and I think we've got to be responsive to that, or there'll be a backlash, and frankly, it'll hasten any pressure on subscriptions.
Well, I think broadcast TV can relate to your comment about how media predictions have predicted our demise, and yet it remains a very healthy business. But in the area of video in particular, obviously there are data caps now, and is that just a necessary part of trying to move video through broadband?
Well, for some there are. So let's be specific. With Fios, we don't have data caps. We sell speed tiers, and because we did the fiber into the home, it really doesn't matter how much one customer uses versus next door. So you don't see the usual when the kids come home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody's speed falls off. It doesn't happen with Fios, which is part of the reason we've had so much success. Right. So I don't see on our horizon putting data caps in place. Now, I also would tell you, I think we got to be very responsive to customers. So if customers said, look, I don't want to pay $89 for 300 megs, I'm willing to have a data cap if I pay 30 or whatever. you know, I think I got to pay attention to that. But,
Yeah.
but from a technical perspective, there's no reason for us to do that.
Right.
Now, wireless is a different story because, you know, I'm sure we'll talk about spectrum. It's a finite resource. You can only do so much around compression and those sorts of things, and you can't allow that. So we do sell blocks of data capacity. So wireless is a little different, but wireline, I don't see the cap.
I think you just sort of talked or touched on a later question in the series we had here, but might as well bring it up now. My sense is that a consumer protection issue, you're already hearing rumblings on the Capitol Hill, is around cost of devices. And there are certainly groups saying, well, it just costs too much. And I believe one of your executives even hinted at the idea of something more a la carte, and maybe that's what you were just suggesting a moment ago, that to provide different price tiers to respond to market pressures and political pressures you might feel.
Yeah, I think it's more market pressures from our perspective than it is political pressures, but I always have to be careful what I say here because I could be getting letters signed by 57 congressmen you know, tomorrow. But I think what Terry Denson suggested really, you know, as you said, we're going to be very candid here, gets into the issue of bundling channels and then requiring the carriers to carry them. I think what he was suggesting was what I term a meritocracy.
Yeah.
That if a particular channel is a big hit and a customer wants to watch it, then you know they should pay to watch that channel.
I see.
I think the feedback we get from customers are some of the channels. You know, we're not one of the biggest by any means. I think we're number 5, and we've got 5 million customers. You know, we take a look at how many people are watching particular channels, and it might be in the hundreds kind of range. Yeah. And I think there is a pressure from customers now about why do I have to have 300 channels? I really only watch whatever, 50, right. Pick a number. So I think the idea that is, I think, worth considering is we can easily track how much a customer watches a channel, and you know, we work out together what it is. By the way, this isn't a reduced cost from our perspective, it's a reduced cost from the customer's perspective. I think that's a novel way that could help protect subscriptions in the long run.
Well, just for the record, when I was on the Senate Commerce Committee, I always voted against a la carte.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I hope my bosses at NAB don't hear that. But you know, a lot of time is needed to let channels prove their worth, and obviously the broadcast community is proud of their channels and the kinds of viewership that we get.
Yeah.
So.
Well, look, you know, it's funny. I think we actually partner pretty well with the NAB, and this isn't a cause celeb for us. Yeah. I think it's it's an early warning that we should pay attention to. If I look at similar things on the wireless side for us, we had customers as more and more smartphones were out there. They said, you know, I like the email access, I like the web access. Why are you making me buy a text bundle? Why are you making me buy voice bundles? And we said, you know, you're right. So we did away with all that stuff. So if you buy one of our Share Everything plans, you get unlimited voice, unlimited text, you buy the amount of data that fits your lifestyle. It's simpler for them, it's frankly simpler for us, and so it's a win-win. I think just as an ecosystem here with carriers and broadcasters, we just got to be open to those sorts of things.
Is that a category of your sales offering that's growing then?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what we offer now.
So it really is the marketplace that's determining that.
Yeah, and we do a lot with customer outreach and net promoter score analysis and that sort of thing. We use the big data things that if you're an enterprise customer, we try to sell to you all. And you know, when customers tell us things like that, we try to stay on the leading edge. That's what drove us to deploying LTE 2 years ahead of the competition. That's what drove us to deploying Fios. That's why we're in the cloud space now. That's why we're in machine to machine in a big way. So, you know, we eat our own dog food in that way, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you have made a huge investment in 4G LTE, and I would assume that is so you're prepared to participate in the video world of tomorrow.
Well, today video is about 50% of our traffic.
50%.
And by 2017, it's supposed to be 2/3 of our traffic. And 3G, I'm sure a lot of folks in the audience have 4G devices, but if you had 3G, you were into video clips, you were a lot of buffering, that sort of thing. And with 4G, you can literally stream video to a device. Yeah. I remember kind of a funny story for people. I was out meeting with Steve Jobs, trying to convince him that the phone that they launched last time should be LTE. And we were going on, and I was really trying to sell. And if you know Steve, he just sort of sits there with a stone face. And I thought, I'm losing this battle. And he finally just put his hand up and he said, enough. You had me at 10 megabytes. And he said, the reason you had me at 10 megabytes is I know you can stream video at 10 megabytes. Our phone will be LTE based. Oh. And that was a huge thing because, we've put billions of dollars into spectrum for that, and our average budget is about $8 billion a year on the network within wireless. So LTE was a huge bet for us, but we've come out, despite the critics, we've come out about 18 months ahead of anybody else.
Well, you made some news at CES this year with Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL. I
did.
And obviously Verizon Wireless is going to be involved with the Super Bowl in this coming year. I assume that's over LTE and couldn't be otherwise.
Yeah.
Is it your aim eventually to compete with or replace the free over-the-air broadcasting?
So, boy, why don't I get out into the middle of the audience and say yes and see what happens? Look, it's funny. Some of my friends that are broadcasters said you just became the most hated man in America, and it really wasn't our intent. This is one of those things you can add a dimension, I think, and the pie gets bigger. So let me just, for the audience who may not be is up to speed on the technology. So today, if every one of you wanted to watch even the same program, we would have to set up an individual channel for each one of you. And you can exhaust the cell site capacity very quickly doing that. So we saw that there would be very specific needs for video streaming. So we, about 2 years ago, started working with our technology providers. And now, if you all want to watch the Super Bowl, I can just put one channel up, and every one of you will be able to tune to that channel. Now, obviously, there's a lot of rights involved here, but New York is our home market. We sponsor the stadium there, the MetLife Stadium. We are the NFL providers. So it's not our intent to get in the way of the broadcasters. Believe me, most 99 point however many nines you want of the people are going to be sitting at home in front of their big screen 4K TV or whatever it is. But there will be some that will be out. Last night I had a bunch of business meetings. I would have loved to turn into the final, the national championship. Couldn't do it. But going forward, you could do that. So now think about if you had the ability during, let's just use the NCAA tournament, to vote via Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and say in our town we'd like to watch this particular game, and we work out the rights issues with the local broadcast people, and the people had the ability to go in and watch that while they were out running around. I think that would actually make people more interested in what's being broadcast than a trade-off. So, who knows? It's a new technology. I think we ought to play with it together, see what shakes out. I think there's opportunity to grow the pie.
I think what you're describing is you're filling a niche need that's out there that perhaps broadcast TV can't fulfill currently. But what I think I just heard you say is that for big TV events, because of the architecture of broadband versus broadcast, it's hard to replace the broadcast signal for the masses.
Yeah, and that's not something we're going to try to do. People ask me all the time, is wireless going to replace Fios? These are our employees. Yeah. No way. I mean, Fios is 10x, 30x capability of what you can do with wireless. So I think they both have the opportunity to flourish here going forward. One of my friends in Silicon Valley said, and he's seen, these businesses cycle. And he said to me once, and I thought it was right on, he said, if you have the mainstream technology and you see challengers out there, the worst thing you can do is sort of clamp down as hard as you can and try to really enforce your model. If you can work with the other things that are popping up, your model can actually expand. And I think this is an example of that.
Yeah, that's very good. You've just made or launched a joint venture called Redbox Instant. And I'm wondering what we can expect from that service and what makes it different from the other things you do.
Well, it's very different for us. It may not be different from other things you see in the marketplace, but the trend that we see is that, over the top, whether you're a fan of it or not from a broadcaster perspective, is beginning to gain some traction. It's still, you can debate the numbers, small single digits, but there are those that like it. Now, what we wanted to do with our Fios FlexView is to be able to have a repository where someone could go and you could get all the movies that are available in your FlexView movies, which you could watch on mobile. You have a place to put those. And if we decided to, and we haven't decided that, but if we decided to get into more of the older television episodes that are being launched broadly, we could do that. I think Coinstar through Redbox has the DVD piece, adds an interesting dimension to it. So it's a platform. As I think about our business, Gordon, I want to have the technologies like LTE and Fios and our IP backbone. Then I want some platforms on top of it. Hughes is an example of that. Our cloud service is one. Redbox is another platform that then gives you the flexibility to pull your assets together. I call them tools in the toolbox. And whatever problem the customer wants you to solve, you've got a platform that you can pull together and try to solve that problem. So Redbox is a platform. I don't know, how big a deal it's going to be for us in the long run, but it's a great opportunity for us to understand this sort of ecosystem and see where we want to play.
But you are going into cloud services very big.
In a big way,
and that is, I assume, so that you can have television everywhere. I think that's what you call it, television everywhere.
That's certainly part of it. Cloud can do many things. We had a significant number of data centers ourselves to take care of mostly our enterprise customers. And Terramark had a tremendous security suite that they used for the Department of Defense and for banks and that sort of thing. Plus they had Class 5 data centers, which are just the ultimate for reliability, and they withstand a lot of terrorist attacks, et cetera. So we bought those. That gave us presence throughout Europe as well as in the U.S. So the real goal for that was to handle enterprise cloud applications. Now, but it absolutely can store whatever you want. So if we chose to put the Redbox videos on there, we could, and then you could deploy it quickly either over LTE or Fios or our IP backbone.
Yeah. I suppose many in our audience know that with Fios, Verizon has now become the 5th largest in video, and with size, there comes advantages and also lots of attention. I wonder if your size now concerns you at all.
Well, only that we're not big enough. That's my only concern there. But we've now passed about 17 million homes. We are going to go to the 19 kind of range. We don't plan to go all the way to the full 26 of our wireline footprint. The service has been very well adapted. We're between 35 and 50% market share. The broadband piece is very important for us. A little bit more profitable, and the customers that want that are really into the high speed and reliability part of it. I think it also, to the point of those platforms, it gives us the ability to get into the connected home, you know, the intelligent home. And we're making investments and building products to be able to do, you know, security or intelligent appliances or those sorts of things. So, so it's a good platform for us, and we're happy with the investments that we made.
You know, this brings us to one of the economic tensions between broadband and broadcast, and that's obviously the issue of cost.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, and I think represent very accurately, broadcasters are very anxious for Verizon and cable and satellite to succeed, because while we are still predominantly an advertising-based business model, retransmission consent is an increasing source of revenue in order to keep producing the kind of content that keeps attracting viewers. Yeah. And yet I know that tension exists, and I can also tell you, having been on the other side of the dais in Congress, a few things light up a member's phones or melt them down more than TVs going off. Yeah. I mean, it sounds silly, but even more than, you know, some of the entitlement programs or immigration status. Boy, if their TVs go down, people are really upset. Yeah. And so, you know, I urge my members to argue for the value, negotiate for the value, but do it in good faith, because it doesn't help you, doesn't help us when things go dark.
Yeah, that's right. Doesn't help anybody. So this is an interesting one for me, Gordon, because as you and I talked, I started out on the wireline side in California, very much operations background, and then I was in wireless for 20 years, and just in the last 18 months, I've come back into issues like this, and I have a number of great friends that are, you know, that are content companies and own broadcasts, and I sit there and I say, okay, I get 1992. At that point, the cable companies were a monopoly, and, you know, the broadcasters need to be protected. So yeah, that all makes sense to me. And then I say, well, okay, you know, now there's Dish and DirecTV and the cable company and the phone company, and there's over the top and all that stuff. And I look at them and I go, so why do you guys need protecting now? You know, and they all get this little smile on their face, and okay, I got it. If it's a good gig, if you can get it, I get that. So people that say AT&T and Verizon dominate wireless, I'd love to be the status of some of the broadcasters. But look, this isn't a religious issue for us, and I agree with you exactly what you said. Everybody, I mean, I can't imagine making content and having to deal with all of the things that the people in the audience deal with. But I think the sort of the monopoly has shifted 180 degrees. Right. So, you know, we have not had a lot of blackouts from a Verizon perspective. I think, as you said, I think the broadcasters see that us coming in and being a competitor is a good thing. So we've got very good relationships. I do wonder, though, if perhaps the adjacent property, if you had the ability, let's say if you're in Washington, I know I'm going to alienate somebody in the audience, but if you're in Washington and you can't do a deal, you ought to have the right to negotiate with Baltimore and see if they do the deal. I think there's got to be a little bit of negotiation here. At this point, other than pulling the channel, which is dumb for both of us as an industry, that seems a little extreme when some modification is possible.
So if you could redo the 96 Communications Act, it would be to allow bringing in other signals? And
well, if I could redo the 96 Communication Act, and we talked about that, we'd be here for 4 or 5 hours. I mean, you know, if you think about that act, when it was done, it was hands off of wireless. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, I think that is the biggest reason wireless has done as well as it's done in the U.S. And we have operations in 150 countries, and I personally did startups in Italy and Portugal and Spain and Germany, and you know, I understand those markets. And we were smart enough to let the free markets run in the U.S., and that's why you see the investment that you've seen. So I mean, if I had to list the top 5 things of the 96 Telecommunications Act, retrans wouldn't be on it. Uh-huh. I just
because at the end of the day, we'd still have to negotiate for the fair market value of the content.
Yeah, and you know, look, generally, okay. I mean, there's a few of the channel guys that love to publish my email address whenever we're coming up for renegotiation, and, you know, tell them to give us a fair deal and all this. Okay, I got it. But at the end of the day, it's how do we just sit down and figure out the right way to do this? And I do think the practice of bundling with the practice of a forced retrans fee just sort of rubs a little bit of salt in the wound. Hopefully, we'll figure how to make a win-win out of this going forward.
Well, obviously, one of the big issues, and I'll tell our audience that NAB has worked very well with Verizon and other in your sector on this spectrum auction to try to get the process worked out so that it's a successful auction.
Yeah, I agree.
And I wonder if you have any comment on what you're seeing so far with what the FCC is proceeding with, and any concerns you have about where we agree, where we don't, and what the FCC needs to do to make this successful.
Yeah, I think Julius is going to be here tomorrow or something, if I'm not mistaken, so he'll be able to give you a little bit more insight than I will. I would just say I think we're very much a free market kind of person. So the thing that I don't like is when I see the FCC sort of putting their thumb on the scale. Yeah. So from your side, when I see them say, well, you should only get up to X amount for the spectrum, I don't think that's fair. If somebody's willing to pay for it in the market, then you ought to get what you get. It's your asset. So I would say, then on the other side of the scale, I'd say they shouldn't also try to keep AT&T and Verizon out of the auction. I don't think you want that either, because we'll have the capital to be able to make the investment.
Do you sense that they're doing that through a back door? I know the legislation prohibits them from keeping you out, but they may, through procedural ways, maybe pushing you out.
Yeah, you know that. Well, we watch it very closely. You lived it for a while, I guess. So we're always very concerned about what can go on administratively, which versus what goes on in the law.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's important. Now, for those that want to keep their spectrum, great. My view is if you want to keep it, if the market can entice you to come off of it, then that's your right. Again, it's your asset. I think where we have worked together is to make sure that the process is transparent, and I think we can work together on all of this sort of repacking of the spectrum and look at different technologies to make it more efficient for the broadcasters. So if they want to sell part and keep part or whatever it is, we can work together. So I think this is one we should feel good about. We've partnered on trying to work these through versus one of us trying to be the heavy.
I keep hearkening back to my time in Congress, and I was on the Commerce Committee when we went analog to digital, and I remember the broadcasters giving up. I think it was like 103 megahertz, and now the FCC is hoping for 120. I would say if they got anywhere near that, there wouldn't be much left of the broadcast space. But who knows what they'll get? The market should determine that, not some predetermined government line. But I suppose, Lowell, one of the things that concerns us is, given the difference between a broadcast architecture of one to everyone in a demographic versus one-to-one through broadband, when you're doing video, and you know this better than I do, eventually spectrum's a finite resource. And we wonder where this keeps heading, and so it sort of goes to the seed corn for us and the seed corn for you. We can only give up so much and have a crop.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. And there's the only source of spectrum isn't the broadcasters. The military has a ton of spectrum. I was in the military for 6 years, so I respect what's being done there. But there are things that we're already testing. For example, as a satellite flies over, we can shut down the use of the spectrum so it's free and clear, and the rest of the time while the satellite's on the other side of the earth, why not use it? So there are techniques like that we can use. I was fond of saying, I think this is really still true from my perspective. There's really plenty of spectrum out there. We just need to get it in the most efficient use that we can find for it.
Is there a difference in quality of spectrum?
Sure.
Is that why the broadcasting spectrum is so attractive to the broadband community?
Yeah, so I think this is one, all spectrum is good, just some's better than others, is, you know, to paraphrase. So, you know, obviously the lower it is, the better you can penetrate, the lower the frequency, the more you can penetrate buildings like this and elevators and that sort of thing. But there's still a place for the higher frequency stuff. It's like building a house, so you want your foundation to be very strong, but as you get higher up in the house, it's lighter material, and that's how I think about the spectrum as it goes higher.
How would you describe the quality of the military spectrum?
Well, again, they're typically long wavelength, low frequency stuff because it's a lot of long distance, but they have a wide variety of spectrum too. So I think it's a mix, and I think we'll just have to work together over time, and we do. You mentioned that I was part of the CTIA leadership, and we've got teams that work together with the Department of Defense to see how best to parse that spectrum out and see if there's opportunities for us to work together.
You know, when we would talk about military spectrum or government spectrum in the Congress and thought, well, the broadcasters are tapped out on this, so let's go get the stuff from the military. The quiet answer was, we've got guns.
Yeah, exactly. Right, yeah.
Come try to get it.
Yeah.
But do you find that the administration and the military are open to this now? It was always seemed like a closed shop to me.
Not particularly.
They're not open to it.
Not particularly. Yeah. But Verizon put a $5 million sort of research grant out there, and I think T-Mobile has done something similar. And so we do have, I don't think I'm supposed to say where, but we do have joint teams working on things like compression and like you know, sharing the spectrum and the satellite example and that sort of thing. So there is some openness, but I would say there's cautiousness because, in fairness to the DoD, all you have to do is look and see what did sequester target, military spending. So what are they going to do? Okay, well, we'll give you the spectrum, and then we've got to do all this repackaging, and we've got to buy new equipment. Where's that money going to come from? I think their view is it's not. So they're better off, you know, holding the hand they've got than getting involved in this too much.
Then I guess the other answer, to some degree, I guess, is compression technologies. Yeah. Do you expect any big breakthroughs in that regard, or they keep coming?
LTE is a huge breakthrough. Yeah. It's about a 20-to-1 capacity lift. So I do see that. I think, you know, whatever, that's 4G, whatever 5G and 6G is, I'm sure we'll have that kind of a lift to it. So, you know, it's, I have heard some reports that, you know, the carriers have this insatiable appetite. We're making huge investments in this. You know, if you wanted to be incredibly inefficient, I suppose you could do video over 3G. But, you know, we put billions of dollars into 4G that helps with that efficiency. So there's lots of that stuff on the drawing board.
Before we go to radio, I understand you might want to show us something on some new device or technology.
Yeah, actually, it's an example of what we can do together. So the way I describe this is I try to talk about now my surprise is gone. What we try to do is make the capabilities of an LTE network or a FiOS network or our machine-to-machine platform available for our partners, and I view the broadcasters as partners. Say, okay, what problem do you want to solve? That's what our Powerful Answers campaign is about. We think we've got the assets to solve a lot of society's problems, but a lot of our customers' problems. So one of the things the broadcasters came to us and said, boy, when there's a natural disaster or some news event that we want to cover, to drive a van full of equipment, to set up the microwave dish, to try to get into an area that's had major damage like Hurricane Sandy is very, very difficult. So we brought some of our partners together to our innovation lab in Waltham, Mass, and said, let's try to solve the problem. And this is one example of a camera that can, I mean, you throw it in a backpack, you put a reporter on a bike, and you send them into a particular area. And this device will record in station quality, broadcast quality HD. And through this little device that luckily has the Verizon logo on it here, you can see, we'll send it up over the LTE network, and it's posted just like that. And we've got smaller versions that people can use for posting YouTube videos so that all this content is readily available. So this is an example of, I think, what we'd call a powerful answer for the broadcasters. And there, by the way, are versions where we bond 3 or 4 signals together. We can get up to 720p, so there's lots of flexibility in this. So I think a device like this is just one example of how, if we work together, we can make life better and more profitable for everybody.
That's terrific. There's a big debate among my radio members. Some see the future as what I would call traditional. Some say it's terrestrial radio, because there's not a business model in streaming radio. Many of my members, our larger members, do stream.
Yeah.
They don't make any money at it because of the royalty structures there versus what has existed from the beginning in traditional radio. And so this debate goes on, and ultimately the customer is going to determine whether the future is over the air or if it's through a stream. And this brings us to obviously the question that we face, and that is being on other platforms other than the center of a car or the clock radio in the bedroom or something. And obviously the smartphone is the sort of the ubiquitous device in people's lives now, and people are willing to pay for it. And we'd love to be on it with more than just a stream, but also with the traditional broadcast. I wonder if you can speak to that.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. I have a friend that's in the music business, and so he's been educating me a little bit on radio versus internet radio and that sort of thing. And I got he sent me a blog the other day that had a research paper attached to it. And if I remember these numbers right, and I think I'm at least within a couple of percent, that right today, the internet, the iHeartRadio and Pandora and some of the streaming services are about 23%, and AM and FM listenership is about 23%. They were pretty much equal. And if you look underneath it at I think it was 18 to 30, might have been 18 to 35, whatever it was actually double on the internet radio side versus the AM FM side, and that was AM and FM together. So I know it's controversial about do carriers have an FM chip in the phone. By the way, we do have phones that have FM chips in it. So again, this isn't a religious issue for us. It's what do customers want? It looks to me as though the trend is clearly toward the younger folks, customizing their radio stations, getting the streaming they want, whether it's a playlist or whether it's streaming of a live station. What I have to do is give customers what they want.
Right.
And okay, I know I'm going to get 2,000 emails. I don't get customers asking for that a lot. And if you look at and these are on mainstream devices. These are HTC devices. These are Samsung devices. These are quality devices. It's not something customers ask us for. So we'll have it. We'll watch the sales of those. We get a lot of feedback from customers. What do you like about the phone? What don't you like about the phone? Right now, FM, whether it's on the phone or not, is a very small issue for customers. So it's not something that I'm going to dictate to my device guys to put it in every device until customers tell me they really want it.
And if they told you that, if it were advertised, sometimes they don't know what they want until they know it's out there.
Yeah, that's right.
Could we help you advertise those phones of yours that carry it?
Sure. I mean, we're happy to have somebody help advertise. But again, I don't want you to think we're closing the door. We think it's a bad idea. But we've just got to be very attuned to customers in our business, and right now they're not speaking very loudly about it.
I'm sure you're aware that some of our radio members are trying to put together and have put together a deal with Sprint. Sprint doesn't want to be a mule for us any more than you might. Do you know about that deal? Do you care about that deal, or does that increase your interest at all?
Well, okay, so you asked that 3 or 4 different ways. Does it increase our interest? Honestly, no. We have tried to never be a follower. We've tried to understand what it is we're investing in and why we're investing in it. And until we see the customer info that says, and right now, it looks like the customer info says they're going to be moving away from that over time. So I think, what another carrier, we're all the carriers are human. We've made lots of mistakes. Just because somebody does it doesn't mean, we're not going to just chase after them.
Do you think on the stream side, is it the interactivity that the customer has with radio that's streamed and organizing their playlists? Is that the driver of that side of the equation?
If you look at a lot of the things that we've talked about today, it's about control. I think that's the reason that some of the over-the-top is beginning to get a bit of a foothold, because they can decide what they want to watch, when they want to watch it, and we've got to figure out how to respond to that. That's the same thing with me. I mean, I do listen to internet radio a lot because I don't like this song, thumbs down, I don't have to hear it again. By the way, I also listen to AM and FM when I get the chance, but that's the draw for me, and I think that's the draw youth as they become the ultimate purchasers. Guys like you and me, our consumption our best years of consumption are behind us. So they're the ones that are going to be consuming this stuff, and we got to be responsive to what they're saying.
Clearly, it seems to me a generational thing, whether traditional radio or streamed radio, and yet you're probably aware. We've talked about it backstage that. Those of my members who do stream, they basically are doing it as a brand loss leader to protect their brand, and yet the royalty structure for streaming was recently created, whereas the traditional radio's airwaves were done back, 1920s, and I doubt it would be created that way, but an industry has grown up around that. This. So that today we're at a really difficult policy choice. But we have to defend obviously traditional radio because there's so many in small radio, rural radio, that just simply could not. They can barely pay the royalties they have now, and yet they confer upon their communities an enormous benefit. Farm communities, for example, that play a little bit of music, we do pay royalties to the copyright holder, but not to every band that's playing it, every label.
I understand. I grew up in a rural community, heavy farming, and when I go back home, though, I have to tear the old Motorola flip phones out of some of my friends' hands that are 20 years old. That's all I need. I don't need a fancy smartphone. So I don't know that the FM in that device is going to reach that particular customer. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we certainly hope to keep the dialogue open with you on this. One of the things that I try to socialize with my members is we have to get whatever the delivery system is, we have to get to a place where we're growing music. And the difference between traditional and stream seems to me to retard the growth of music on on the stream side. And if no one is making money doing that on the content side, beyond Mel Karmazin or Howard Stern, what do you, does it plateau at some point just because the economics are there, or does somebody replace someone who gets out of the streaming business?
Well, somebody's smarter than me is going to have to figure this out. As I said, I have a friend that's in the music business, and if I ever want to get him fired up, all I have to say is, gee, how much money are you making off Pandora? And he goes on for about 15 minutes and scorches my head in the process. So, I don't think the content creators feel like they're making a lot of money either. So, hopefully somebody smarter than me, as I said, is going to figure this out.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground, Lowell, and but I think what I should ask you in sort of closing is what big technological thing do you see out there that may ultimately transform broadband?
Well, I think there's a number of things, and rather than take too much of your time, we have a booth on the second floor on the south hall, And if you go there, you'll see everything from digital signage to what we call the Verizon Digital Media Service, which takes content and puts it through what I call the universal adapter so that it can go on to any smartphone or tablet or whatever. It's a big thrust for us, and the team is here to demonstrate that. All the machine-to-machine work that we're doing will be able to give information about any of the shows or any of the movies that you create. You'll be able to see what we call Viewdini, which is a great sorting tool for preferences, for getting the content that you create into the hands of the folks that best match the profiles that you're trying to market to. I would just say in summary here, Gordon, I think we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg. It's the tip of the tip on what we can do with video and what these networks will be able to provide to people to improve not only access to content, but access to some of the solutions you saw around healthcare and education and better energy management. I've been in this industry a long time. I've never been more excited about our capabilities and our ability to partner.
You just raised, I think, my last question, and that is a campaign you started, I believe, in January called The Powerful Answers. Yeah. And I assume this is to gather information to affect public policy.
Well, I suppose that's a byproduct of it, but our belief is that we have the assets, and I'm not looking for help from the government here, but we have assets that are really sort of a national treasure if you look at what we've been able to build on wireless. And I travel all over the world, and there's no place in the world that has the kind of wireless networks that we have in the U.S. And if you look at the capability of Fios and cloud, and I could go on and on, if you look at the problems that our customers have and that society has, we have never been in a better position than we are today to provide powerful answers to those problems. And so we're working with places like the Cleveland Clinic, the New York Hall of Science. You mentioned that I'm on the National Academy Foundation, which is for education in high schools. We can take and apply those assets to the problems that they have. We have some pretty powerful answers, and that's what we're focused on as a business.
And I guess you're going to give out an award for the best answers.
We are. At CES, we announced a $10 million award in those three areas. So it's energy, healthcare, and education. And the top prize is $1 million prize, and then it steps down from there. We'll award all $10 million, and we just went through all the criteria last week at an event in New York. And we're hoping that people come up with some very unique solutions and some unique applications that will be available for everybody. It's not exclusive to Verizon. It's a way for us to give some seed money. You mentioned seed corn a minute ago. That's a way to have that seed corn out there, and hopefully it'll really blossom into something that'll make a significant difference in the way we live our lives.
Well, clearly, and my members know this, I've always told them that the world of tomorrow isn't just broadband and it isn't just broadcast. It has to be merging these two technologies, these two architectures in a way that gives the customer what they demand. And so just in closing, we look forward to finding more ways to venture with you and to coexist peacefully, profitably on both sides, because we need you to succeed, and I hope you feel that you need us to succeed as well.
We do as well. We appreciate all the partnership from all of you in the audience. Thank you very much. And Gordon, thank you.
Thank you all. Wonderful.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us this morning for this very insightful conversation. Enjoy the rest of the show.